Hello, my quilting friends. My name is Leah Day, and welcome back to the Friendship Quilt Along. Today, I'm quilting our 12th block on my long arm. The super patchwork daisy is going to be quilted with a little bit of ruler quilting and a little bit of zippling. So let's jump on the long arm, the Grace Qnique 21, and get started quilting together. So this is block number 12, and I have planned my path a little bit here, guys, to make this easy and to use my frame in the best way possible. And this is something that you really want to start thinking about, depending on how much space that you have to quilt in, and using it up as wisely as possible. So I got started and I went on ahead and did my quilting design in the petal, which is basically just corner to corner curves. I'm just going to bounce from corner to corner, and I'm using the super slide ruler as a guide there. Now I'm going to go into the background and I'm going to fill in the background going all the way around and connect to this point, go inside this petal and do my corner to corner curves. Then I've got another ruler I'm going to use to quilt the center, and then I'll be able to advance the block one time and finish all the quilting on the other side. So this is just a good habit to get into, to really think through your quilting design and plan it out so that you know where you're going and what you should accomplish, what you should knock out first. So I decided on using Zippling. This is Zippling. It's a zigzaggy form of stippling, and I decided to use this because I really haven't done a lot of sharp angled straight line designs. So I think this is going to be perfect. It's going to fill in this background area really quickly, really easily. So the simplest version of this design is just zigzaggy lines, something like this. And then every once in a while you want to come to a sharp point and then backtrack to create almost like a lightning bolt effect. Something like that. Now I pretty much figure on, this is not really the limit of my frame, but I just noticed that my stitches don't look as good and I get a little bit more tension on the quilt when I stitch down further. So I'm going to kind of stop there and just from there swirl all the way around the block. So zigzaggy design, you can see I kind of zigzag over to the edge, then zigzag back in. Let's try and make it just a little bit more interesting. I come to a sharp point there. And you don't always have to end with a super sharp point. You can kind of end up with a squarish shape like right here. If you do all straight lines and 90-degree angles, I actually call that a different design. I call that circuit board because it does have a very different look. So I try and have a lot sharper angles whenever I'm doing zippling. Alright, so now I'm going to stitch down my sides just to secure them. This is just a general habit that I get into once I secure a side. I go on ahead and stitch along that edge. That looks great. And I'm roughly trying to quilt this on about a 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch scale. So that way the lines aren't too close together. It's not going to get too dense, too intense, make a stiff quilt. But I'm still getting enough quilting in that it's going to be secured and it's going to last the test of time. That's the point of the quilting stitches. They hold the quilt together so you can wash the quilt a million times and it wears really well. There we go. I'll stitch down along that edge one more time. You can see I quilt about 4 inches or so, and then I go and do that edge stitching. This time I think I'm going to go all the way up to that corner, and then I'll zig in. That looks good. I love how quick and simple this design is. But you may be looking at this going, wow, I like that design, but I don't know if I have the control to do straight lines. Or maybe you're having trouble, like some of my points aren't exactly pointy. Some of these are just a little bit curvy. So let's try using a ruler. I need to figure out what edge I want to use. I think I want to use this edge. And this is the Ditcher ruler. It's really useful for exactly this kind of thing. I was kind of in a tight spot right there. That's why I wanted to use that edge just to get out of that spot. But this is super useful for stitching exactly this kind of thing. Nice straight lines, nice sharp angles. Of course, you got to watch out. The ruler's just a little bit on the bulky side, so I have to watch out whenever I'm quilting in, close to that edge, close to my red snappers. And if you have any questions about that, about how I based my quilt on the long arm now, how I use those red snappers, definitely check out my video at leahday.com/snapper. They are awesome. They have saved so much time on pinning my quilts to the frame. So this is looking good, but as you can see, it definitely slows things down. You know, I click the machine on and off a lot whenever I'm quilting with rulers, just so I can reposition it. Let's see if I can, well, no. The more, even when I say, let's try not doing that, I continue to rotate it around. It's just a habit for me to click the machine off, mostly because I have my machine in cruise mode, so that if I stop and I'm wiggling the ruler around, well, the needle's still going up and down. So personally, I like to click the machine on and off every time I reposition the ruler. Sorry, having a little trouble with my words today. But yeah, I think this is a little on the slow side, and it's kind of not really the point of zippling. You know, your point with zippling is a fast, speedy design. Get in there, stitch those straight lines, create that nice texture, and don't worry about it if it's not absolutely perfect. And don't worry about it if you got some curves here and there. It's not the end of the world. Now I need to be careful in this situation just to leave myself space to get back out of this area, because this is a really narrow space. So you can see I just zigged in, and now I'm zigging right back out again. That looks great. So while yes, you can use the rulers, I think that's going to end up slowing you down a lot. I don't think it's absolutely necessary. And as you can see, you know, I actually really kind of changed the design a little bit whenever I had the ruler in my hand. I was more focused on the angles, and it almost looks like a different design because I was stitching it so differently. So that's something to keep in mind too. You're going to act differently. You're going to think about the design different when you have a ruler in your hand. And that's just one of those things. You never know if something's going to work for you in a better way, in a different way, using something else. So if you struggle with quilting, zippling, maybe try grabbing a ruler and see if that helps you form this design. All right, so now we're turning the corner over here. Let's just span these shapes nice and big. Nice long straight line. You know, there's no rule that says that they have to be short choppy lines. You can make nice long straight lines. That works great. I do like to shake it up and do something different, you know, come in at a different angle. Zippling is just as useful and as dynamic as stippling, and stippling is one of our most popular designs, right? So this is going to be a design that is super, super useful for doing all over style quilting, for filling in backgrounds just exactly like this. Okay, so I am on the home stretch through this section. I just did more zigzag zippling through there, and then now I'm going to zigzag my way down into that petal, and then we're going to stitch corner to corner curves with a ruler as a guide. So here we go. I want to hit that point, so I slow down. That's the point I wanted to hit. Now I'm going to grab my super slide ruler, and what I want to do is I want to just eyeball this. I mean, you could mark it if you wanted to, but I'm just going to eyeball this, lining up the center line on the ruler with roughly the center of that square. And over here I'm making sure that the edge of the ruler is roughly 1/4 inch from that point. And that's going to help me because if I have it 1/4 inch away, my needle's in the center position, and it is automatically 1/4 inch away from that ruler, I should land right in that point, just like so. Perfect. All right, now I'm going to do the same thing. Again, lining up with a ruler, kind of eyeballing it, looking for the center. And this is a very long ruler, so watch out for that. Position your hand so that it doesn't tip or rotate a little bit as you stitch. You can see how wide I spread out my hand on this ruler. Okay, so now this direction, I don't think that is a very comfortable position, plus I'm kind of hitting my red snapper there. So I'm going to go this location, this direction. It's the same curve on both sides of this ruler, so it makes it really easy to just switch sides. And this time I have that center line and I can nail that right through the center of that block, which is super useful. So I'm going to line that up, click on the machine, come on, click on the machine, and away I go. Watch out for those corners. There we go, perfect. Now rotate it around. I've got that exact same positioning, just exactly right. And you want to just make sure that you're 1/4 inch from that corner with your ruler. And this just makes such a nice design. You know, whatever you've pieced, corner to corner curves is generally a great choice because it just nicely accents your piecing. It shows off the design and it doesn't overwhelm it with ridiculous amounts of quilting. This is plenty of quilting for this space. It leaves those petals nice and open so that they have pretty texture on your quilt. So now I'm going to use 2 different rulers to add a little bit more texture to this center space. I want to do some stitching in the ditch around this center square. And the ditcher ruler, this is what this is specifically designed to help you with. So you have 3 different options for ditching. I love this narrow space, just like this. You can line up and it really locks the foot in place. So you don't have a choice, especially when you're going horizontal, to stitch right in that ditch. Although sometimes I find I really need a visual. I need to see where I am in that ditch. So I like this angle really well for that. So this one has kind of slots. So I can line this up and look back behind the foot and I can see that I am on that ditch. And then I can adjust with my thumb back and forth if I need to and stay right exactly in that seam line. So that one went a little bit better. And then I have one more, and that's this little groove. And what I can do is I can put this one to the back and make sure that these 2 little dog ears are on the ditch, line up and kind of push the machine back into that slot. And that works really well. So you got 3 different options. You got to just figure out, in any particular situation, I find some situations one method works better than another. So you just have to feel it out and get some practice with it. Okay, so this is the 2-inch circle ruler. What I'm going to do is line up. I've got a straight line right down the middle, and you've got 2 different ways you can quilt circles. You can do an outside curve, or you can do an inside curve. So first I want to show you the outside curve. So you're pulling the foot around that curve, okay? The feeling is very different. When you go with this curve, you are pushing against the outside of the curve. So understand these are 2 different styles of rulers. They quilt 2 different styles that quilt the same thing. There we go. That makes more sense. All right, so I'm going to stitch down, get my foot into that pocket, and then now I'm gripping the ruler, gripping the machine, going all the way around and down into that pocket. Perfect half circle. Now let me show you how the other half of this ruler works. This time I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to make sure that straight line right down the middle is lined up with that ditch because I know that ditch it should be a 2-inch square, right? I'm going to click the machine on. This time I'm pulling the machine and the foot against the back end of that circle and down and around. You can see this one had a nudge ever so slightly to the side, but overall looked terrific. So I'm super pleased with that. And now I can stitch down and get to this point, and then I can finish off my next daisy doing that corner to corner curves, finishing up the zippling in the background. And here's what it looked like whenever I finished this patchwork daisy block. So that's it for this video. I hope you learned a lot about ruler foot quilting and zippling, this fun zigzaggy design. You can find hundreds of designs to inspire you at leaday.com/design. So I hope that you'll come and check that out and enjoy many more of my quilting tutorials. Now, if you'd like to find the pattern for this and you're wondering if you can still join in the fun and quilt along with me, the answer is yes, of course you can. You can find all of the patterns for the Friendship Quilt Along at leaday.com/friendship. Until next time, let's go quilt.